I don't even know if I would have had other interests, but I don't think we would have been allowed to have
Well, that's the thing. We've talked about the fact Dad went to a very, very small school, Bristolville.
Yeah.
And hail to old Bristol, the black and the gold. I know that because my dad sang it. I can't sing the Ross fight song.
Dun, 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 dun.
No, that's Hail to the Victors. Boy, did you just make some enemies.
That's the
from
University
all the
of Michigan. Onward Giants. Wait. Onward Giants. Onward Giants. That's all I know.
Welcome to Real Siblings, It Ain't Easy, a real estate podcast with the goal to educate, inform, and save their listeners time as they navigate the market and properties in their neighborhoods. Get ready to join real-life siblings and professional real estate advisors, Donna Reed and Eric Seemann, as they discuss how it may be simple, but it ain't always easy.
Every time I think about the places I have known, I realize that times have changed. So I'll do what I can to make this house into a home. Yeah, yeah. Oh.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Real Siblings, It Ain't Easy, a real estate podcast that just ain't typical. I'm Donna, this is Eric, and we are the Real Siblings. We are both professional realtors with Keller Williams, and just for your information, because we're going to talk schools today, I went 8 grades to the same school, but by the time my baby brother was there, they transported him somewhere else.
Transported me someplace else. And I think you must have had trouble graduating if you were there for 8 years.
I know, it was really hard to get out of there. This podcast blends lifestyle together with real estate as we work to communicate, educate, connect, and entertain our listeners. While the topics vary, and to be fair, we do go in many directions, we work to provide our listeners with insights into our industry, better equipping them for their next real estate transaction. So today, before we talk about the schools and the images behind us, I just want to make note that it is April 8th, and that from a real estate perspective, if you happen to own an Airbnb in the line of the eclipse, I'll bet you made bank today.
I know somebody who had one of those little tiny trailers.
Yeah.
Not motorcycle size, but one of those ones that's about 10 foot.
Yeah.
$500 a night.
Oh my gosh. And you guys, I'm in Tucson. You probably know that. And so here we had like a 75, 80%, but Eric was in the line of 100% eclipse today.
And it was totally eclipsed by clouds.
By clouds. But people at home in Ohio at home, they got to see the whole eclipse. So
yeah, and I'm going to call out my old bandmate. Joe was a couple years behind me. Joe Cappuccini.
okay.
Dad was a police officer in town. He took several pictures. He's in eclipse glasses with an eclipse t-shirt on and had these 800 zoom binoculars with filter lenses on them. They were about the size of a dinner plate, they looked like. He was ready to go.
Just before we started recording, we always get together, we talk a little, we take a break, and then we come back on. I was looking at the images of people sitting down at Roger Young Park and people over at Hayes Memorial and stuff, doing their things. So that's not the topic today.
No, but it leads into it because we talked about the fact that Fremont Ross School District or Fremont City School District started spring break today. And for both of us where we live, we did spring break.
Yeah.
A full month
I was going to
ago.
say about a month ago. Yeah. Yeah. Because they're going to be out of school by the 6th or 10th or 12th of May.
That's right. Graduation and prom, all the prom photos are coming.
Yeah.
Because all of the proms are going to be happening here. And I think we're still probably a month away.
Yeah. Yeah.
In Ohio.
Yeah. Probably. Yeah.
Right. May timeframe with graduation in June.
Yeah. So for those of you that are watching, as always, we kind of talk about the photos behind us. So Eric, why don't you tell everybody what the picture is behind you?
So we're talking schools, and part of it's spring break. And the irony of this and what led to this topic, as I discuss this picture, is that last year was my 40th high school reunion, 1983. And aside from seeing friends, the idea of going back and being able to visit any of the institutions where I went to school or where you went to school, not possible. Every single one of the buildings that we went to from an education standpoint, elementary, junior high, middle school, high school, all gone. And that leads to the picture behind me, which is probably the second school in Lindsey that was a 2-story brick building that today survives because it had been sold long before it was part of the consolidated school district and became an individual private residence. And now your friends,
Bonnie,
who own it, are in the process of restoring and continuing to live in it as a single family home.
Right.
So while that one's still in place, going back to the late 1800s, yours,
the one behind me, is where we went, you guys. And this was in the middle of the tear down. And you can see that, you know, it goes from front to back, right out to the back of the school, and the stairs that were in the entrance there, which if you zoom in, you can probably read the words and things that were on it. So bittersweet, right? To think of all the memories that we had there and how, are you trying to see the words, Eric?
No, well, I was trying to see the words, but it also struck me as I was doing research and looking on this, how much that staircase looks like the staircase that was in our junior high.
Yeah, that's true.
When you went in the front door, it had a few steps down on either side of it, and it had the staircase that went up.
Yeah.
And off to the left and to the right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So clearly a style
of when they were when it was built. And I don't know that you know this, but the downstairs of the one behind you is now pretty well ready. We already had an episode about the Sunflower Festival and stuff last year. And for the one this year, the group that is a couple of years ahead of me that would be having a 50th, they are actually going to, I think, have a meal in there downstairs for their friends who come back, who went to Lindsey to school and to Washington.
Since we can't go back to our school anymore, we have to go back to the school that precedes our school.
Makes total
in
sense.
The same town in order to... Good grief.
Yeah.
And this all goes back to a bond issue as I was preparing for this. I think it was a 2017 bond issue for the Fremont City School District, where they had cumulatively, between the superintendent and the board, decided all of the buildings at that point were no longer feasible to continue to try to be upgraded for today's standards in technology, education, tools, environment, all of those kind of things. With the passing of that bond, they made a decision on schools that they were going to keep and those that were going to be destroyed. Now, prior to that, the decision had been made that the Fremont Junior High, formerly the Fremont High School, was the first one to go.
Yep. Did you go there?
I know part of the irony for that, for me, is that the major renovation from a bond issue in the 1970s was to upgrade the Fremont Junior High. And I thought about pulling out my yearbook that was, I survived renovation 78, 79. And that was the theme of our yearbook. It was all, and to think that within 20 years, the entire building was gone.
Isn't that crazy? Wow. Now I think the library has extended over that way a little bit. That sat across the street.
Would make sense, but did they go across the road?
I think so.
They put like an annex across the road?
I think so.
That's okay. Then we need to get on Google because Google's got to update.
Yeah.
As I was looking at the schools, we had the discussion of what elementary school in Fremont was right next to the stadium.
Mm-hmm. And we guessed
that still shows is on the Google Maps, but it doesn't exist anymore.
But I thought you said Krogan was, we think it's Krogan. And
well, no, I think that one was Krogan, but Krogan is not in that location.
Okay.
I'm telling you, when you look at, we got Pennsylvania, 2 of them are on the east side of the river and 2 of them are on the west side of the river. of the elementary schools.
Okay.
And then the middle school, of course, sits where where our marching band field practice was at.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And then the new high school went into the parking lot.
Right.
And the school in between, which was our high school, doesn't exist anymore.
I keep thinking we use the words new. And when we think about real estate, I remember a broker telling me that I can't say something is new unless like we bought it yesterday, but we can say newer. So like right now, I wonder how many years old is the newer school? Newer to us, is it 6 years or 8 years or 10 years? Wow.
It's surprising. And I know two of the schools in Fremont.
Yeah.
And this was long before Lindsey was part of Fremont City School District. Mm-hmm. Were built the same year as Washington was. And I think it was Stamm and Krogan.
Okay.
That were part of that original build. You know what building predated that from a school in the hometown?
What?
St. Joseph Central Catholic
I was going to ask if we were going to talk about St. Joe.
Was 1906.
Wow.
So it survived actually longer than all the other ones. It has now been demolished. Kindergarten through 5 goes to Sacred Heart, and 6 through 12 is St. Joe Central Catholic.
You know, it's fascinating to me, the discussion about this from an economics perspective, after having spent so much time in Europe, and how things just go on and on and on and on and on and on. And I specifically think back to the trip in 2015 in Sweden, when a prison was updated to become a hotel, which then had the tower. Yeah, it was like I had paid to be there. And then the tower out back where the knights and the people used to go had an elevator, and that became a place for food and fancy dinners rather than demolishing the history, you know? And I think about, what was Bob's last name that was our maintenance guy? Bob Hetrick?
Bob Hetrick.
Yeah. And so we called it the furnace room. And I'm sure that part of it was, you know, is that safe in today's world? And, you know, when they talk about what makes sense and what doesn't. And I don't know enough about any of that to be fair in my assessment. But it's sad when you think about the need for housing, the potential for small businesses to use different rooms and
alternatives.
Right.
We did a family reunion. We've talked about in past episodes about our annual get together. We were up in Kansas.
Yep.
And we went west to go have fried chicken
in an old school.
An old elementary school.
Yep.
The cafeteria basketball was where we had fried chicken in a family style, right?
Yeah. 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 So no, I don't remember what town.
Yeah, I don't remember.
No.
In the reworking of Fremont City School District, they went from having at one point 7 elementaries, because they did include Riley. Riley had joined in 1967 and was consolidated in 67 from the Riley Township School.
Like Washington Township. Yeah.
We know Washington came in later.
Yeah.
That would have been what, 72?
Something like that. Yeah. I don't
And that's one of those things that never crossed my mind as a first grader, second grader, is the fact that now we were going to be part of Fremont City Schools.
Right.
Right. I started and it was still independent.
Right.
It became part of the school district later because you finished up 8th grade.
Yep. I think the class underneath me also did 8 grades. I'm not 100% sure, but within a couple of years, a year or two, that's when they only.
Okay. So one of the big things I remember of lamenting that we were not going to be able to do was you older kids got to do crud day.
That was your big, I don't get to do it. I thought you were going to say like 8th grade graduation. Crud day.
The things that you hang on to and the things that you think about.
I don't even know. Like if you told a class of kids today they got to have a crud day, I don't even know if they would know what that means.
Of course not. Because all of the kids run around, especially the girls, still run around looking like their clothes. They've been attacked by a bear.
That's true, Tori. that was our.
So the idea of
That's funny. Oh my gosh, the things you missed out on in life. I hope you don't have to have therapy for that.
Okay. And again, while I'm researching all of this, what's funny is, over by where Otis was on the west side.
Yep.
That was in the Polish Prairie.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. Based on the markets and stuff. Yeah.
Prairie Market is still open and still operating in the same location it's been for over 100 years.
Yep.
So we were able to upgrade a grocery store and keep it in business.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of people still go there for specific things.
That's it. It's still open, doing good business. And
they say they live on the prairie. It's funny when people,
that's right. You're over on the prairie.
Yeah. Yeah. That's too funny. So what about schools in San Antonio, Eric? By the time I came here, Caleb was already in 8th grade. So we did middle school and high school, and public schools and stuff.
And Adam was a senior, right?
Junior.
So he did junior and senior year.
Yeah. Yeah. And so.
Does he still hold that against you?
I think he's over it. It's
Depends on the day.
A decade or two. Whatever. At that point, one of the things that I always think about is when you're kids, you play together. So then your parents know each other because you're playing together, or you're going to go to somebody's house. So they want to know where you're going. Well, by the time we moved here, I barely knew the parents of their friends because Adam was already driving a car, and Caleb was an 8th grader. So some of those kids, he was in their weddings and they were in his, when he just got married. But it isn't like I knew the parents, well, I met them. So it's a very different scenario, whereas you were in San Antonio when Jenna was little, right?
Yeah, Jamie and Jenna were both little.
Yeah. And public schools, right? You always did public.
I was part of, when I moved to town, I became part of the second biggest school district in San Antonio, which is Northeast ISD. Okay. Everything in San Antonio or everything in Texas is identified as an ISD, Independent School District. So there's Northeast, NEISD, and NISD, Northside ISD. The two of them come together. Northside is the largest in San Antonio, South Texas, and number 4 in the state. Has over 100,000 students across all of the elementary, middle, and high school campuses.
Wow.
Compare that, the numbers that I looked at for Fremont, which was the big school, right? 3,500 students through what are now the 6 schools, 4 elementaries, the middle school, and the high school.
High school. Wow.
And because of looking at the plans, I never thought about it. Didn't think as I wandered the halls at Ross how many classrooms there were.
No,
there was a wing you went down, it had lockers on both sides of it. And did you think that there were 3 rooms on one side of the hall and 4 rooms on the other?
Well, like where the band room was, or when we went down towards shop or something. Yeah, I never paid attention.
Right. You never really paid how many classrooms was it? So it surprised me looking at the brand new high school. It only has 29 classrooms. Now, 29 classrooms plus the gym, plus the 700-seat performing arts theater,
area,
plus practice rooms for band and choir and those kind of things. But 29 that are identified as being classrooms. And we also know there's administrative offices in there. That seems to me now to be very, very small for a high school.
It does to me too.
29 classes, right?
I don't know how many are in ours. That's something I'm going to have to look up to see the one where Caleb graduated, because it was so overcrowded that between Adam's graduation and Caleb's, a second one was built, for the kids in this area.
Okay, and because I didn't do the math on this, while you're continuing to talk, I'm punching into my calculator.
What's interesting from a how many people perspective, as you and I chatted a little bit, was, when we were growing up, and especially and a generation before us, people had a lot of children. We actually come from a family that is unusual from the perspective that our mom only had one sibling and our dad only had two, because so many of that generation had 5, 6, 7, kids, and so we don't have near the first cousin thing or any like a lot of people of our generation do. And the families in town, again, because so much farming, there were migrant workers that came that ended up settling, and they had large numbers of children. And now, even though there's a few more homes, as you head down 590, you go south on 590, you go up towards Zims or whatever, there's some houses out in the country there, but people, 2 or 3 kids, right? Or one. And because I may or may not ever be a grandma, but the conversation is, how many children can we afford? And not even just afford to raise, but afford to take care of and have our jobs to maintain a lifestyle, So very different. And that's part of the reason. But Tucson's growing. Tucson's the opposite. We're growing, which is why we needed more schools.
Well, outside of band, when we were growing up, did you have any other interests, sports, extracurricular, anything else?
I don't even know if I would have had other interests, but I don't think we would have been allowed to.
Well, that's the thing. We've talked about the fact Dad went to a very, very small school, Bristolville.
Yeah.
And hail to old Bristol, the black and the gold. I know that because my dad sang it. I can't sing the Ross fight song.
Dun, 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 dun. No,
that's Hail to the Victors. Boy, did you just make some enemies.
That's the University of Michigan. Onward Giants. Wait. Onward Giants. Onward Giants. That's all I know. Is that it? Is that the fight?
That's right. Okay. So
bum.
Dad always played such the big shot because he was in the band and he played basketball and he was this and he was that. And it's like, that's because there were so few guys. If you didn't play, they wouldn't be able to field a team.
And still went home and took care of the cows.
So we go from that to, I'm driving you in for that because I'm not even sure they really practiced when Dad was in school, because as soon as we started, there was one point I thought I was going to be on the swim team. We had a pool. I'd swam quite a bit, felt pretty comfortable in the water. I'm going to get on the swim team. 4 days a week, out the door at 4:30 in the morning was not going to happen. So it wasn't even an option for us.
Yeah.
Right now, we talked to Rich and Susan yesterday, and Rich is my oldest stepson. Annabelle is his youngest. She is pitching softball now at 10 years old.
Right.
He's playing on 2 teams simultaneously outside of school.
Man.
And it was practice yesterday before they headed to Orlando to check on Bob and follow up on him before going here. And you asked about schools here. What about schools in Tucson? Do you have any idea? Because you actually had kids in school there too.
I was saying, so the one that's closest to us, Caleb was in middle school, and the middle and the elementary that he would have gone to were right side by side, still the same right now. And they're a mile or two from me. They're very close. And then he would rollerblade to high school. So we lived logistically really close to the schools. By the time he was in the high school, if I recall correctly, that's when they had divided because it was so overcrowded. But the number of private schools just has increased. Sal Point is the largest Catholic school, I think. St. Elizabeth Ann Seton is up by me, but there's the Lehman Academy and there's the Science Academy, and there's just so many private schools. And as a child of the public school system, and the Christian schools, not to mention all the Christian schools, right? So it's interesting that when we sell homes, and you and I talked a little bit about this, we'll have to bring it up, your disclosure. People want to live sometimes in a specific zip code based on the rating of the public school, and yet they don't send their kids to the public school. They'll send them to a private one. And as a person that was just doing my taxes, Arizona offers tax credits for foster care, for public school, for private school, and for a nonprofit. So I can give away 1, 2, 3, 2 to 3,000 in these donations. But the private schools, I can give like 3 times as much or 4 as the public schools. And I always find out the name of someone who needs help with tuition, and I do it for that person specifically. But as a public school person who has a son and a daughter-in-law that work for the public schools in Denver, I would love to be able to donate more to the theater program because that's what speaks to me, right? And yet that's not an option. I can do $200.
And while Fremont, where we grew up, has 4 elementaries, middle school and high school, it doesn't have anything or doesn't have anywhere near the student enrollment population to create what they call a charter school or a magnet school.
Right,
which is what
right.
we have here in San Antonio. And when you're a specific magnet school for a specific topic, so we have Northwest Science and Technology. It is part of and administered by the Northside Independent School District. And 50% of the enrollment will come from Northside. The remaining 50% are at large from every other city, school, subdivision, area in town and come to that school. There was one that was called health careers, people who were going to be nurses, radiologists, doctors, somehow, somewhere, something in the medical field. You applied to go to health careers. Again, that was a north side school. It was over by the medical center, still is. But enrollment was selected down to around 150 in a class, 75 of which would be north side and the other 75 from somebody else, based on volunteer, career, background.
That is, so TUSD, which is the Tucson Unified School District, is like that. The original school that Tucson High, where Gil's mom went, and family went, they are the arts school, so the theater and stuff. University High is one where you have to have certain grades and things to get in. So yes, the TUSD, I'm in a different school district. I'm in the amphitheater school district. So I'm in the county on the outskirts of Tucson. And so, yes, what you calling a charter or specialized or whatever, the TUSD system also has that. Again, what I don't know all the details of is I know that you can live in another zip code and you can apply to go to some of these schools. I don't know the details of the selection process or how many they can take or if they're required to take some from other places, because sometimes there's a requirement that you have to have. And with Caleb and Jessica up in Denver, in the language schools, it's definitely, they come from all over. And thus, a lot of parents driving,
Right. A lot of parents drive. Or even if they don't drive them all the way to the school, they have to get them to the closest connector so they can get on a bus to go there, which is something we talked about with back to Fremont. Is I'm in junior high. Junior high was overcrowded at the time I was there with 3 grades. So they had to send the 7th graders out to the old Riley school to be 7th grade only, second bus trip. And actually, as I'm researching for this, I found an article, 2016, they did a reunion for Riley just for the teachers and the students who were there only for 7th grade.
Really? When did they do that?
It was in 2016. It was my homeroom teacher and science teacher, David Pash, who is listed as being the contact. So he's got a Gmail in their account. And I'm going, I wonder if he's still answering that Gmail.
Oh, that's funny.
He was mentioning the last principal, who was Mrs. Livingston. She was principal when I was there. History, geography teachers, Mr. Fales. There were a bunch of people that were just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Eric, it's interesting because as Tucson grows, we really only have 2 ways to go. We can go northwest or southeast. And northwest would be as if you were driving up to Steph's, those were cotton fields that were up there. So the Marana School District, which was just a tiny, tiny little town, is booming, growing. And it's also a huge bus route because there's still people way out in the country, which means it's a super diverse school. Because there's the kids that are coming on the bus 20, 30, 40 minutes. And then there's the families that have moved into the subdivisions. And in a way, it's kind of nice, right? As compared to everybody being, I'm going to be using air quotes, the same, right? Because we're all coming from kind of a similar situation. So Beth's daughter, Chelsea teaches in the Marana school system. And it's wonderful to go see the shows and hear the choirs and stuff because it's very diverse. And I like that piece of it,
okay. And then again, while we've been researching this, because we talked about these magnet schools, there are some of the schools that are designed just for trades.
Right.
And that throws us back to our conversation about Vanguard Vocational.
Yep.
And now Vanguard is the Vanguard Sentinel Career and Technology Center.
Makes sense.
And its district goes down to Tiffin. There are now 2 campuses.
That's
one in Tiffin, and it's Tiffin and Hopewell Loudon, Upper Sandusky, Lower Sandusky, Fremont, Woodmore, Elmore. I mean, it's just, I always saw it as a few kids from Ross who'd go over there for class and come back.
Yeah. Yeah.
So understanding more about how they blended with this Sentinel career, that they've got student high school age vocational and trade programs, as well as adult learning and education. They've got medical classes. It's pretty strikingly different from what it was when we were growing up.
Wasn't what it was when we were there.
Now, I know we're going to be running out of time here. And one of the other things that we talked about on this is the fact that one of the biggest portions that everybody pays as a homeowner is in their property taxes to support the schools.
Right.
And because we're in April and our statements in Texas will come out in May, so you can start arguing about, and are you going to challenge the appraised listing on it and contest it? I'm starting to see a lot of those Facebook, social media memes that it's like, I never have had kids. I don't have kids in the school. Why do I have to pay so much? I shouldn't have to pay property taxes. And as I pointed out to you, one of the big things that I always point out to my clients is strong schools and good schools help maintain the long-term value of your investment in your real estate. If you don't have somebody who's investing in the schools, if the schools are not keeping up, that's going to have and potentially have a negative impact on the value of your property. So while you're sitting there going, I haven't ever had any kids in this school, I still want to support the schools so that we have a strong school system to help maintain the value for when I'm not here and the family is going to sell off this property.
And that's a big thing here because of so many of our population being my age or older.
Right. And then I guess the other one that I want to slide in is we did talk about the fact that just like the school behind you, Washington Elementary, and that the Fremont City Schools decided they needed to upgrade and renovate, even in a town, city, municipal area of over 2.5 million people, we have school systems that are struggling with enrollment because population shift has moved around from pocket to pocket to neighborhood. And now long-term established school districts, SAISD, which was one of the originals in towards downtown historic areas, and Southside ISD, both of them are having population issues. And they're making decisions on what schools they have to close. And naturally, all of this, the parents are like, oh, I'm up in arms. My kids have all gone to this school. They shouldn't have to go too. It's like, we can't support, just like the building behind you, it was not financially feasible to continue to try to operate a school that only had an 11-to-1 student to teacher ratio.
Which was great for the kids, but not
economically feasible. Yeah. So,
all right, brother, you're going to wrap us up today, right?
Go schools. Yes. Go to school. Get a clue. Back to school days. Thank you for listening. Joining us, we've reminisced about our schools in Lindsey and Fremont, talked Tucson, talked San Antonio. We have blended how our lifestyles and careers in real estate have impacted where we're at, what we do, who we work with, and how we have these conversations. It's not just about the houses. It's not just about the lifestyle. It's a blend of the two that brought us to where we're at. As a reminder, we're both real estate agents. Donna's in Arizona and Tucson. I'm in Texas, in San Antonio in the Hill Country. We both work for Keller Williams, and we are here to help your family find the perfect home to create memories and build your wonderful life. If you need a referral around around the where?
Country.
Around
world.
the country, around the world, somewhere. We're in 55 countries now. We can help hook you up and connect you with a great real estate agent. Remember, it may be simple. It ain't always easy. I'm Eric.
I'm Donna.
And we are real
siblings. For real.
Every time I think about the places I have known, I realize that times have changed. So I'll do what I can to make this house into a home. Yeah, yeah.
I'm Annabelle, and I want to thank you for investing your valuable time in listening to Real Sibling. It Ain't Easy. I hope you found this episode informative and enjoyable. There are several ways you can support this podcast with my Grandpa Eric and Aunt Grandma. Please take the time to like, follow, and subscribe. Additionally, leave them a 5-star rating along with a review on your preferred podcast platform. The final thing I would ask is that you recommend this podcast to a friend, a family member, or an associate. Your engagement is critical to their ongoing success, and they look forward to connecting. Check out the show notes Grandpa put together with their contact information, including emails, phone numbers, and website. And remember, the real siblings look forward to hearing from you.